Welcome to the Unpacking the Framework video series. This series provides valuable information about the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. My name is Denise Luscombe, and this video introduction is being recorded on Whadjuk Noongar Boodja. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and the land you're listening from, and recognise their continued connection to country, waterways and community. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. This video is one of a series that describes the evidence and practice information that underpins the principles of the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. You will hear from both national and international speakers throughout this video series. This video covers family-centred, a key principle of the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention, and is presented by our international speaker, Dr Marilyn Espe-Scherwindt. Marilyn is a consultant for Eurlyaid, the European Association on Early Childhood Intervention. Through her work with Eurlyaid, she's involved in providing training and technical assistance to early childhood intervention practitioners throughout Europe and Central Asia. In 2019, after a lifelong career in early childhood intervention in the United States, Marilyn retired as Director of the Family Child Learning Centre, an early childhood intervention demonstration, research and training centre at Akron Children's Hospital in Akron, Ohio. During her career, Marilyn directed multiple federal and state-funded demonstration, personnel preparation and outreach projects. Her research, publications, presentations and workshops have focused on collaboration, family-centred practices, family engagement and social support, implementation and improvement science, and the use of technology to deliver early intervention services and supports. Through grants and contracts with various local, state, national and international organisations, Marilyn has designed and implemented program evaluation, written guidance documents, and developed and delivered in-service training for families, early childhood intervention providers, and early childhood intervention stakeholders. And her love for early childhood intervention, the families and the professionals has never wavered.
Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to start with a short story that I heard at a conference years ago. It was the story of a graduate student about to make her first home visit with two of her supervisors. And on the way in the car together, the supervisors were sharing that they had struggled with building a relationship with this mother. It was frustrating for them. And so when they arrived at their destination, by this time the graduate student was a little unsure of what was going to happen, what her role was going to be. And so they parked the car and walked up to the apartment door and knocked. Nothing happened. So they knocked again. Nothing. So they knocked a third time, hard and loud. And the door swung open, and the supervisors walked right in and sat down. But the graduate student stood there because there was no one there. Where was the mother? So she looked around the door and she saw the mother standing there. And she asked, "Where would you like me to sit?" And from that moment, a relationship began between the graduate student and the mother. And it turned out to be a very successful, effective working relationship. And several months into the relationship, the mother said, "I have something I need to say to you. From the moment I met you, I knew you were different." So let's think first of all about early childhood intervention. What is it? And here's a contemporary version based on years of research. ECI is the different types of parenting supports provided by early childhood practitioners and other social network members. You can see those figures dancing around the family that provide parents the time, energy, knowledge, and skills to engage their children in everyday child learning opportunities, because we know that's how children learn best, that promote and enhance both child and parent confidence and competence. So family-centered practices are key to this model of early childhood intervention. And these practices are a collection of beliefs and practices that define particular ways of working with families and that are linked to enhanced child and family outcomes. So, how ECI services are delivered is as important as what is delivered. And so many of you already know that there are two groups of practices that fall under this umbrella of family-centered practices. First of all, relational practices, interpersonal behaviors, warmth, active listening, empathy, being authentic. And then the other group of practices are more action-oriented, and those are called participatory practices, encouraging parents to make decisions, encouraging families to use their existing knowledge and abilities, helping families learn new skills. And so these are distinctive ways of working with families, and participatory practices add value. They add strength to the outcomes, and they are a very distinctive, unique, special aspect of family-centered practices. So in the next few slides, I want to revisit two aspects of relational practices, building relationships and building engagement, and then shift to participatory practices, building empowerment and building capability. So let's start with the relational practice of building relationships. I love this quote. It is within relationships that families reach their goals. Human relationships and the effects of relationships on relationships are the building blocks of healthy development. And so the ultimate impact of intervention, this version of ECI, depends not only on the knowledge and skill of practitioners, but also on the quality and continuity of the personal relationships established between us and the family. And one mother, I think, said it best as she was talking to a group of professionals. She said, I know you know a lot. You have expertise. But I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. And that brings us to this picture, I think, this back and forth between two people. To me, this is a photo of constructing relationships. And again, these relational practices are key because sometimes professionals can become so focused on the immediacy of promoting child development that the emotional aspect of parenting is forgotten. So these skills that we bring to the relationship, emotional openness, active listening, empathy, not sympathy, empathy, being authentic and honest and interested and trustworthy, and sharing information, this back and forth serve and return between us and the family. Another key aspect of relational practices is that of building engagement. And sometimes I get this question when I am speaking or teaching or training. Someone in the audience raises their hand and says, you know, Marilyn, I've been working with this family for a few weeks. And this mother, when I'm visiting, she is just sitting on the couch and looking at her phone. She is not engaged. And I love that question. I think it's a great question to dig deeper into what engagement means. So engagement is about connection, indicating a trust and investment in the developing relationship. And so again, years of research show us that the greater the engagement, the stronger the relationship and the outcomes of the relationships. And engagement is characterized by interest, initiation, and active participation by both families and professionals. What's our role in engaging families? So the process of engagement happens not only when we first meet families, but also throughout our relationship with them. Sometimes engagement happens quickly. Sometimes it takes longer to unfold. Engagement looks different for every family. And for each family, engagement may vary from session to session, from visit to visit. So it's not a destination, it's a journey. It's an ongoing process, this continuation of connecting, connecting, connecting. And it's everyone's responsibility at every encounter. So, this question from the practitioner who was frustrated by what was going on in her home visits is important because we know the benefits of program services will not be fully realized unless the participant is genuinely engaged. And so, in thinking about that, I mean, it's our responsibility. We are responsible for building engagement as well as the family is responsible, and thinking about options. Well, what could happen the next time this practitioner makes a home visit? Could he or she ask to sit on the couch with a mother and just start by talking with the mother? Again, starting to build that connection because engagement is connection. So, in summarizing, building relationships and building engagement, when parents have a sense of connectedness, they believe they have people who care about them as individuals and as parents. They feel secure and confident that they have others with whom they can share the joy, pain, and uncertainties that come with a parenting role. They seek timely assistance from people they have learned to count on when faced with challenges, and they feel empowered to give back through satisfying, mutually beneficial relationships. So, moving on to talk about two aspects of participatory practices: empowerment and capability building. And so, let's start with empowerment. What does that mean? Well, you might be wondering why you're seeing Portuguese on the screen. And it's because back in the 1990s, when Portugal was first starting to build its national ECI system, they invited practitioners, experts from other countries to come and speak and do training. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those who was invited to come talk about family centered practices and working with families and teamwork and collaboration. And so, one of the challenges of working in another language, working in another country, is translating words. And at the time when I first visited Portugal, there was no word for empowerment in Portuguese. And so, we had a conversation. How are we going to translate this word that it has such a rich meaning in English, but there's no alternative just like it in Portuguese? And so we started with dar poder, to give power. But I think quickly we realized that that was not a great translation. Because if you look at this figure below, there's one person on the right, you know, giving away something to the girl on the left. And what's going to happen? Once that person gives away what's in his or her hands, it's gone. He doesn't have it anymore. So giving power, giving away power is really not a good translation. So then a couple of years later, we shifted to partilhar poder, to share power. Right? Was this better? It seemed like it was going to be better. But if you look at the picture below, two children sharing what I think might be a milkshake. And so maybe as they're sharing, they'll each get half of it, but maybe one person will get more than the other person. And when it's gone, it's gone. So sharing power didn't seem quite right either. And then, voila, from Brazilian Portuguese came this term, empoderamento, which is actually empowerment. But once we have a good translation, we still have to explain it. What does it mean? If it's not giving and share or sharing, what is it? So empowerment is not giving people power. People already have plenty of power in the wealth of their knowledge and motivation to do their jobs magnificently. We define empowerment as letting this power out. So think about this. Parents have power. How do we pull it out? And these are the participatory practices. First of all, we assume that parents are competent and they have power. We create ongoing opportunities at every encounter for parents to display their competence, to make decisions, to make choices. And we always respond to parents' needs in ways that promote a sense of control. They're deciding. They're deciding what's important, and they're deciding what supports they need from us. Another aspect that really goes hand in hand with empowerment is building capability. And I guess I'm used to saying building capacity. That's what I've written about, that's what I've seen in other articles. But I love this switch from building capacity to building capability because it already assumes that parents have abilities, that they have competence. So I think all of us have experienced moments like this when we meet families for the first time. What I planned and what happened. So families are often feeling anxious, lonely, isolated, waking up in the middle of the night worrying about their child, worrying if they're making the right decisions, worrying about the future. And so this building capability is absolutely key. How do we interact? How do we use practices with parents that build their capabilities, that build on their capabilities, that increase their confidence and their confidence, so that when they leave ECI, they feel stronger, a stronger self of self-efficacy, more resilient, more hopeful, more optimistic about the future. And so we know the power of these capability building practices, this aspect of participatory practices. And so the more parents are involved in their children's early intervention in a capacity building, now capability building manner, the more positive are both parent and child outcomes. And when I was putting together this PowerPoint, I was doing a search online, and I've used Legos in this presentation all along, and I spotted this one and I thought, oh, how cute that is. It's got Lego figures in it and some Lego blocks. So I inserted it. And then I went back and thought about it and I said, oh, yeah, this really is about capability building. It's not just cute, it has a message. And so when you think about it, the two figures on the top, let's pretend they're the parents. And they are creating, they're building a structure. And the two people on the side are handing them building blocks. And I think that's exactly what capability building is all about. The figures on the top are choosing which blocks they want to use in building their structure and where to put them. So thinking more about two specific aspects of building capability is first of all using adult learning principles because we are going to be supporting families in learning new knowledge and skills. But again, often the way we want to teach it is not how parents learn best, and each family will be different. And so thinking about adult learning principles is key. So caregivers learn best when the information is relevant and useful, when it's built on what they already know, when they understand what they are learning and why it's important and how to use it with their children. They learn through active participation and practice. And when they learn best, they are often practicing in the context and in real time. And also, an aspect of adult learning, again, is this relationship where there is feedback, mutual feedback back and forth. The second aspect that I think is really key and really unique about building capability in this particular way of doing ECI is thinking about informal supports. The people around the family, not us, but family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. And so to help us think about this more, I want you to take out your phone. And if you have a calculator app, pull it out. And so I want you to do some multiplication. 7 times 24. So 7 days a week times 24 hours a day times 60 minutes in an hour. And so 7 times 24 times 60 is 10,080 minutes. A typical pattern of providing ECI services and supports is a home visit once a week for about an hour. So if you think about it, there's a week of 7 days, 24 hours and 60 minutes, or 10,080 minutes between our visits. So who is there to support the family when we're not there? Who is there supporting their time and their energy between our visits? And who will be there to support them when the family leaves ECI and continues forward with their journey with their child? So participatory practices, empowerment, building capability, are characterized by an emphasis on each other's strengths and competencies, not on weaknesses, not on fixing problems. And the aim or outcome of this approach is that family members will increase their belief in their ability to learn and make changes in their family life, their ability to think and act critically with regard to life situations, and their power over negative circumstances. So, in thinking about this use of family centered practices has been studied for years in research. And consistently, what we see are strong child and family outcomes. Parents report that they are able to engage their child in everyday learning opportunities. They are increasingly involved in their child's ECI program. Less caregiving burden or less stress, and increased parenting confidence and competence. So if you think about the quote at the top of the page, I think is really key. It's why we're doing this PowerPoint. Without equipping the child and family for success, families are no better off when they leave ECI than when they entered. From the moment I met you, I knew you were different. Family-centered practices make a difference. Family-centered practices make us different. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this video, part of the video series Unpacking the Framework for the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. The review of best practice in early childhood intervention was commissioned by the Department of Social Services. Led by the University of Melbourne, the project team included PRECI, professionals and researchers in early childhood intervention, Murdoch Children's Research Institute, SNAKE, National Voice for Our Children, Children and Young People with Disability Australia, and ACD, Advocating for Children with Disability. Coordination and production of the video series was led by PRECI.